Hey, how you doing everyone? Dave Souza, Brian Bacon Studios here, and as promised, we're going to take a look at multi-touch and show you how to do a two-player multi-touch system for a basic two-player game, one person touching one side of the screen, one person touching the other side of the screen. Now, multi-touch gets pretty hairy when you get over two actors. There's only 3 people that I know of that have really accomplished a solid working 4, 5, 6 touch system. That's been myself, DBA, and another a guy, I'm not sure what his username is, that did one a while ago. And you're going to see as we go through this tutorial here, we're going to be a couple of parts, probably 3 videos. But this one here, I needed to really, since multi-touch really is enabled through touching, I needed to really be able to show you it. Show you the system, explain what's going on, so you can start to begin to understand the difficulties with developing a multi-touch system, specifically when you're trying to affix X and Y coordinates to the touch assignments, as we'll see in relationship to the touch count. And the way that Apple's system works is that, well, let's just go right to the screen. So let's go ahead. I'm AirPlay mirroring my my iPad, and I've got a couple of examples here that we're going to bring up. Sorry about the text being so small. This is the largest that I can make it in GameSalad. Hopefully you can see it over my screen right now. It's 0. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how basically there's 2 kind of parallel universes going on here. You've got the touch count, and then you've got touch assignment. And now and this has absolutely no, this is where people I think get really confused, is there's really no relationship between the touch count and touch assignments. They're 2 different things. The touch count, basically, the way Apple's built the system is the touch count basically tells you how many fingers are on the screen. Now, as you'll see in this demonstration right here off my iPad, the only actor that I have is this one here that's displaying the touch count right now. It's going to tell us how many fingers are touched on the screen. There are no other actors on the scene. There's no rules when touch is pressed or any of that kind of stuff going on right now. So you can have the touch count has no relationship to actors whatsoever in GameSalad. There's no link at all, period. And this is what makes multi-touch such a difficult thing to do. So as we're going to see it right now, I'm going to put a finger on the screen. I'm going to put one on the screen. I'm going to see over my shoulder that the number changes to 1. And the device is telling us, the touch count saying, hey, there's 1 finger on the screen. So now I'm going to go ahead and put a second finger on the screen, and we're going to see the number change to 2. And the third finger on the screen, the number changes to 3. And so I can take them all off. It's going to go back to 0. And so basically there are no actors on the screen. So what the touch count is doing is it's registering how many of your fingers are actively anywhere on the screen. It doesn't necessarily, the touch count doesn't tell you, well, you know, you have touch 1 in X position and touch 2 and in this position and touch. It's not giving you any of that information. The touch count specifically tells you how many fingers are actively touching the capacitor screen. And they could be anywhere. I've got fingers all over there now. I'm touching it. You can see the number moving behind me. I'm taking it. I'm just putting fingers on the screen. No actors on there. And the touch count is changing. So this is one of the things that makes multi-touch really difficult to do. So let's jump into another example to show you what I mean. So let's go ahead and go up to the second example I've got. And what I've got behind me, you can see this a little better, is the white box is going to be, now let's not get this confused, okay? There's the touch count, and then there's the touches. Okay, still these things have no relationship to touches pressed and all that kind of stuff in actors. So as I explained to you, bear with me, is going to start to get confusing, and I'm going to try to keep this as logical as best I can. So we have the touch count, which specifically tells us how many touches are on the screen. Then we have the touches, as you see in that menu, as we see when we'll get into the computer stuff, you'll see touch 1, touch 2, and you can track the X and Y positions of when a touch was pressed. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at some of this right here behind me in an example, and I'm going to show you why the touch count and why this is so difficult, because there are 2 parallel things going on, and you have to really build your own logic to keep track of this stuff. especially when you get over 2 touches. So I'm going to go ahead and put one. I'm going to use, I'm going to do my fingers in order, these 3 fingers here. And I'm going to go ahead and touch the screen. And as you're going to see behind me, in the white box, that's displaying, the white box I have right now is displaying touch 1. That's all it's doing. There's no touch and press rules. There's no anything. It's in order. The blue box is when a second finger touches, it goes to touch 2. When a third finger touches, it goes to touch 3. And these 3 boxes in order behind me, the white, the blue, and the green color here, are tracking those 3 assignments. So I'm going to go ahead, and then the last box here, this little box here, is showing us the touch count. So let's go ahead and let's touch 1, and we'll see the numbers moving. I've got it tracking the X position only right now. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to touch 2 things. And so we see, hey, it works right now, right? We've got, you know, touch 1 and touch 2 tracking. Okay, we're watching the X and Y positions of touch 1 and touch 2, and we've got a touch count of 2. And hey, we got 3 fingers on the screen now, and we're tracking, you know, we got 3 touches, and we're tracking all 3 touches, and they're assigned 1, 2, and 3. Now here's where it gets tricky. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lift touch 2. Remember, I touched them in order, so I'm going to go ahead and lift my second finger that I touched. And what we see now, if you can see behind me on the screen, is the touch count has dropped to 2, but the touch assignments have stayed in their order. In other words, my first touch, physical touch that I made on the screen is tracking. We see that, but we see that even though there are only 2 fingers on the screen, what's assigned is touch 1 and touch 3. Now this is why the touch count becomes irrelevant, because now we're demonstrating 2 touches and we're tracking 1 and 3. Because an assignment in GameSalad, when the order in which you touch the screen stays assigned until you lift your finger. So now for us, the touch count becomes irrelevant, because now when I go back and I put this middle finger back down, it's going to jump to the lowest available touch count number, and you'll see it's going back to tracking touch 3 again. So if I lift 2 fingers, let's say I lift these 2 first ones, okay, we see that touch 3, the touch count is now 1, and we're still tracking on touch 3. Now if I go ahead and put another finger down, I'm just going to put any finger down, what we're going to see is it's going to jump to touch 1. And as you see behind me, touch 1 is tracking now. So, and we've got 2 touches and we're tracking 1 and 3. And then when I touch again, it's going to go to touch 2, and now our touch count is 3. So as you can see, what's happening is that the touch count has no relationship to touch 1, touch 2, or touch 3 when they're touched. The only way it really tracks them is out of the gate. So once you get over 2 touches into 3, it becomes impossible to track what's been lifted when, because what happens is once you press the screen in the order, so the first finger that physically touches the screen, the second finger that touches the screen, the third finger that touches the screen, in that order, once they're assigned one of those touch counts, they stay locked into that touch until the finger is lifted. So that really leaves us with not being able to use the touch count, because now the touch count, we can have 1 and 3 active, and the touch count's going to say 2, and now when we touch again and the touch count equals 3, we're actually grabbing touch 2 or touch 1. The same way when you get into 4 and 5, it's always going to go to the lowest available touch count when you add another finger. So if, let's say we have 5 actors and we have 5 of them touched, and we lift actor 1, the first touch, and we lift the third touch, when we touch another finger down, it's going to go right to touch 1. And then the next time it'll go to touch 3, because those are the ones that are available. 2, 4, and 5 are being used. They're already assigned. They stay locked in until we lift our fingers. So now all of a sudden you begin to, as you understand the system and kind of the parallel systems and what's going on, you begin to see the difficulties in doing multi-touch over 2 actors. Realistically, what happens is you have to build your own algorithm, or you have to build your own logic to be able to track when things were touched. Okay, and all this stuff has no relationship to when touch is pressed, other than when you build your own tracking system. Now, you can basically use we use the touch count as like a benchmark to jump off of into our tracking system. So there's, for me in my tracking system, there's a switch off. Once I touch 2 actors, I lose the touch count completely, and I start going into my own algorithm that keeps track of what is touched and where the touch count is and all that. The logic can get pretty hairy and can get pretty deep. I built an algorithm to be able to track. I used a prime number algorithm to be able to really slim down the code, because if you try to use interlocks, your code gets enormous and it just bogs your system down, and you basically built this whole huge amounts of code that's going to drop down your FPS, all to track touches. So it's really difficult to do. It took me nearly 40 hours of extensive testing and building and coming down to boiling down and finding a prime number algorithm, and really finding a handing off system that I could be able to get my count kick-started to keep track of everything. There's just so many variables when you get into higher touch counts. What's been lifted and what hasn't been lifted, and what's still assigned and what's not assigned. So now, right now, you can see how multi-touch works, how it tracks, how things are assigned, when they're assigned, what the touch count really means. And so in the next tutorial, what we're going to do is we're going to get into, now that you kind of understand this stuff, I hope, we're going to get into building a basic 2-player multi-touch system. And we'll show you how that. I'll show you how that works. Maybe you'll be able to do it in 1 part, maybe 2, and I'll show you a couple different methods that work, and we'll see if they work for you. All right, so let's get on with it. Let's get into some software, and let's go ahead and do a 2-player multi-touch. All right.